A 150-pound Boerboel does the exact same thing every single time his owner cries in her kitchen. Same steps, same order, never once different. Grace had no idea. For 7 months, the only witness was a cheap pet camera on top of the refrigerator. But the footage that finally showed the world what Moose really was didn't come from her kitchen. It came from a stranger's doorbell, 6 blocks from home at 9:40 on a cold November night. Because what this gentle giant practiced in the kitchen, he was ready to use in the dark. Grace Sutton was 27 years old, a first-year teacher with 28 seventh graders, a rented half of a duplex off Forest Hill Avenue in Richmond, Virginia, and a phone full of missed calls from her mother in Ohio. She had moved 470 miles for the job, and it was eating her alive. Rent was $1,150, her car needed brakes, she graded papers until 11 p.m., and every hard day ended the same way, standing at the kitchen counter, calling home, keeping her voice steady, then crying quietly into the sink the moment she hung up, so nobody would ever know. Somebody knew. Moose was a 150-pound fawn Boerboel with a black mask and paws like baseball mitts. Her brother Eric had rescued him from a shelter as a puppy back in 2021, and when the Army sent Eric overseas in 2023, Moose arrived at Grace's door as a temporary arrangement. 18 months, Eric said, tops. Moose walked in, looked around, and lay down in the exact center of the living room, like a delivery she hadn't ordered and couldn't return. I still see you haven't subscribed. Grace thought nobody saw her cry. Somebody did. Be one of the people who stays. Hit subscribe. She bought a $40 pet camera and stuck it on top of the refrigerator because she felt guilty leaving a dog that size alone all day. She checked it from her classroom sometimes. Moose slept, Moose yawned, Moose relocated from the couch to the floor with the urgency of a glacier. She stopped checking. She should have kept watching because the camera wasn't catching anything interesting while she was gone. It was catching something extraordinary while she was home. Every single time Grace cried at that counter, Moose did the exact same thing. He would cross the kitchen without a sound and sit down at her feet. Then he would raise his left paw, always the left, and rest it on her wrist. Then he would lean in, press his forehead against hers, and hold it there perfectly still until her breathing slowed. And then, every time, he would walk to the door and come back carrying a leash. Not his leash, hers was clipped to it. The message was not subtle. We are going outside, both of us, now. The first time it happened was a Tuesday in October, 3 weeks after he arrived. A brutal phone call from a parent, then the sink. Grace never heard him cross the room. She just felt the weight of one enormous paw settle on her wrist, warm as a hand, and looked down into 2 brown eyes that were going nowhere. Moose did not distinguish between heartbreak and onions. Grace chopped one on a Sunday in March and got the full protocol, paw, forehead, leash, while she laughed and cried at the same time and told him he was an idiot. Moose held the leash and waited. They walked anyway. Then one Sunday, she finally scrolled back through the camera app. There were 11 clips spread across 7 months, and the choreography never changed once. Same silent crossing, same left paw, same forehead, same leash. She sat on the kitchen floor and watched them all back to back, and then she cried again, and Moose, with magnificent timing, went and got the leash. If a dog has ever read you this easily, you already know why stories like this deserve to be told. So the walks became law. Every night at 9:15, rain or not, down Forest Hill Avenue, along the edge of the park, a 2.4-mile loop Moose seemed to have designed himself. Grace started sleeping. She met neighbors who learned Moose's name before hers. She cried less, which Moose treated as a personal achievement. The loop had rules. Waffle, the corgi at the Blue House, got exactly 1 sniff. The bakery on the corner got a long, hopeful stare. And the last 5 minutes were always slow, because Moose believed the walk wasn't finished until Grace's shoulders came down from her ears. And on every single walk, he did one strange thing she never thought about twice. He always walked on the outside, between her and the street, between her and the alleys, between her and everything. If she switched sides, he would loop behind her and quietly fix it. She thought he was being stubborn. He was being deliberate. On a cold night in November 2025 at 9:40, the streetlight at the corner by the park was out. Grace never heard the footsteps behind them. Moose did. He had been hearing them for 2 blocks. He stopped so suddenly the leash snapped tight. Then he turned and put himself in front of her, facing back down the sidewalk, 150 pounds of absolute stillness. A man stood a few yards away, closer than any stranger should have been at that hour, hands already out of his pockets. The same dog that wiped her tears with his forehead, the same dog that carried her leash like an invitation, the same dog Eric called a couch potato in a dog suit. Moose lowered his head, and out of that enormous chest came a single bark that Grace felt in her teeth. One warning, that was all he offered. The man decided he had somewhere else to be, fast. A doorbell camera across the street caught all of it, 38 seconds of footage, Moose rotating with every step the stranger took, never lunging, never leaving her side, always the wall. When Grace filed a report, the officer watched the clip and told her the man matched descriptions from 3 incidents near the park that month. Then he looked at Moose, filling the entire doorway behind her, and said, "Ma'am, I don't think you'll be having any incidents." When Eric saw the footage on a video call, he went quiet for a long time, and when he finally came home in the spring of 2026, he didn't even pretend. He signed the adoption papers over to Grace, official and stamped, 3 years late. "He chose," Eric said. "I'm just the paperwork." Her students found out, because of course they did. Somebody's mother lived on that street. For the rest of the year, 28 7th graders asked about Moose before anything else, and Grace's classroom got a new rule: write well, and Friday ends with a Moose video. Today, the camera is still on top of the refrigerator, and it still catches Moose working. When Grace cries, the protocol runs: paw, forehead, leash, every time, never once different. Moose turns 5 this summer, and when she's away, the camera catches something she never expected. Moose sleeping under the counter stool, right where she stands to call her mother. 150-pound dog guarding an empty spot until she comes home. Off duty, but never off post. Dogs don't ask why you're crying. They don't need the story, the context, the explanation. They just refuse to let you do it alone, and then they walk you back to yourself, one slow loop at a time. Moose comforted Grace in the kitchen and guarded her in the dark, and the longer you watch the footage, the harder it is to tell those 2 jobs apart. So if there's a gentle giant sitting in a shelter near you, one of the big, quiet ones nobody looks at twice, remember Moose. The most loyal dogs aren't always asking for a forever home. Some of them are applying for a position. So tell me, what was Moose really doing all those months? Comfort or protection? Or were they always the same thing? Tell me in the comments.